Good morning, YouTube, and welcome back to our continuing series about retrofitting our greenhouses. If you've been following along, you're going to notice that we've taken basically things from 4 different places on the farm. We've taken it from our old greenhouse, our newer greenhouse, our green-to, and our patio slash porch aquaponics system. And we're taking it all and putting it in one big place in an aquaponics greenhouse with a whole lot of fish. Now, I want to preface all of this, and I probably should have started this video series out with this. I am not an expert. Never wanted to portray myself as an expert. However, I've been doing all this for almost 20 years. So I've gained a little bit of experience about what to do and what not to do, and things that'll lead to success and some things that are just definitely going to lead to failure. So I'm hoping to share a little bit about that with you in my video series, and those who take exception with some of the things that I have to say, well, I'm presenting my experience. This is my experience with my education, my mistakes, and I've learned from a lot of my mistakes. I've learned about what kind of fish to raise, what kind of fish not to raise, what kind of plants to grow and what kind of plants not to grow. I have had various different systems in various different sizes, experimenting with different methods, as well as different fish, as well as different types of plants, different ways of growing them. I've done grow tubes, I've done grow beds, I've done recirculating systems, I've done non-recirculating systems, and I've had varying successes and failures with all of them. And so I'm hoping to share some of my experience with you. Now, this morning's project, as you can tell, it's just before dawn out here on the farm. Sun's just barely peeking up over the horizon. Today's going to be a hot day, so I wanted to get an early jump on things and start doing something about the floor of the greenhouse. The new greenhouse, what we've basically done is we've taken an old above ground pool that was about 4 foot deep, 32 foot long, and 16 foot wide, and we've gone and slit the corners and laid it all down. Why in the world would I want to do that? Well, first of all, the old swimming pool had been out there for about 10 years, and all of the edges around it have fiberglass mat that comes around it, and that's what all the steel tubing was put through to support the edges of the pool. And basically, after 10 years in the sun, that fiberglass had just started coming apart. And I do mean literally, where if you went up to the edge of the pool and put your elbows up on the side to look out over the pasture or something, you would come back with fiberglass all over the insides of your arms. And yeah, that's no good. So we were just going to throw it away. Well, during this pandemic lockdown, my wife had the wonderful idea of, hey, since we don't have anything to do, why don't we retrofit your systems and get it back in operation and give us some vegetables to eat? Hey, what a great idea. So I came up with the great idea of using the swimming pool as the floor. Wouldn't that be great? This is a thick plastic liner that I don't ever have to worry about weeds popping up through or weeds growing in it. And it's basically a hard plastic floor. Great idea. Well, all great ideas always aren't all that great. One of the things we discovered pretty quick is the old pool holds water, and it holds water real well. Meaning that when we laid it out, the bottom of it isn't completely flat. It's got a little humps and ridges to it, and every single one of those humps and ridges holds water. So what we've ended up with is 1 to 1.5 inches, sometimes 2 inch deep puddles in places all over the floor that we got to walk through. And this rain doesn't, or this rainwater doesn't just drain off someplace. The pool was designed to hold the water. So we're going to have to go and lay down a bunch of paver bricks in the walkways so that we've got some place to walk around and not get our feet wet. So come along with us today as we start gathering up bricks and start figuring out what to lay under those bricks and why. And we'll show you a little bit about our new greenhouse flooring. Come along with us, let's get a little bit of work done. This is our old greenhouse system. This is what we're slowly disassembling and taking apart, and we're utilizing parts off of it. As you can see, and as I've discussed in previous videos, there's a big old tank down here at the bottom that was about 1,100 gallons, and there's multiple tiers of shelves, just like that float table that we've got in the new greenhouse. This worked great. You basically just put potted plants inside of these big float tables, and they would rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall at various times of the day with a timer on a pump, and it worked wonderfully. However, the hurricanes have come along and basically torn it to pieces, and all of this wood in here is over 15 years old, and it's been exposed to the weather. And wood does what wood does. It rots. And yeah, it's between the hurricanes and the rot and this, that, and the other, we just had to come up with something better. And this also had 55-gallon and 35-gallon grow beds hanging off of both sides of the tank over here. And those grow beds worked great too. And we had grow tube systems laid out here with reservoirs that we used, and I fed a whole bunch of people at my office with all sorts of peppers and stuff that we grew. It was a good system. Now we're using parts of it to go and rebuild the new system that's right over there. Today's project is we're going to be picking up all of the concrete pavers and moving it over to the new system so we can build a new floor. Let me show you what we're pulling up. All these old paver bricks that used to be on the floor of the old greenhouse, we're picking them up and we're moving them to the new system. These are just thick enough to be able to get us up out of the puddles, where it shouldn't be much of a problem. This has been a good floor for in here. We had the same problem that we've got over there because we've got the whole thing lined with black plastic, and it held water, just like the swimming pool's doing over there. And these bricks did a great job of keeping my feet out of the water. Because I like wearing flip-flops an awful lot, but I don't like getting my feet wet. These will solve that problem. If you're as old as I am, you may recognize this. I got this from a friend of mine in Houston, and because he was moving and had no place to put it and didn't want to move it. I don't blame him. It's pretty big. Not to mention it's kind of heavy, and yeah, it's just kind of a pain in the butt to move. But if you're as old as I am, you may recognize this. If you are a resident of Houston, Texas, this was the backdrop on one of the local TV stations for their national news segments. This was actually on TV for a number of years. It had a light system around the edge of it that put light through it and made it glow. And yeah, it's a pretty big sized world map. Well, he recycled it and used it in his house, and when he moved, he handed it off to me, and I recycled it, and I actually used it for the back wall of my greenhouse. This used to be part of the back wall of my greenhouse. You can see the rust stains and stuff from some of the nails and stuff that we used attached to it. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this big piece of corrugated plastic. I shouldn't say corrugated, It's built like cardboard. It's got an inside and outside, and it's sandwiched with this little honeycomb of plastic, much like cardboard. What I'm going to do with this is going to become the underlayment for all of those paver bricks. One of the problems you have with paver bricks is when you go and lay them down on dirt, they'll tend to move and shift over time, especially if they're subjected to a lot of water underneath them. We're going to cut this up into 2-foot tall slices, big old long pieces, and this is what we're actually going to put our paver bricks on, so that when you walk across them, they won't move in the wet dirt. Kind of hate to cut this thing up, but at the same time, we're going to recycle it, we're going to reuse it, and it will become a fantastic underlayment for all of our paver bricks. Now let me go show you where this is all going to end up in the greenhouse. Now we're in the fish house, the new fish house. As you can see behind me, there's some little puddles here and there, and there's a really big puddle back there by the gate that goes into the grow house. The dirt that's underneath here, because it cannot evaporate when it gets wet, it turns mushy. So we're going to lay down pieces of that world map and stack all of our pavers on it, so that I've got a way to walk down all of these fish tanks on a relatively level surface that's not going to move underneath my feet. And when it's wet, I won't have to worry about getting my feet wet. Now let me show you the greenhouse portion and what we're going to do in there. And now we're in the new greenhouse. I am walking through puddles as I speak. There's puddles from the entrance all the way to the other end. Most of them are about a ½ inch deep. Some of them are about 1 inch. There's one spot that's about 2 inches deep, a little bit of the low spot. But that underlayment underneath there, it's going to smooth things out, and again, we can walk around without getting our feet wet. I'm going to make a central avenue through here, and areas over here by the grow beds where I can walk around and my wife can walk around in flip-flops and not worry about getting her feet wet. At least that's their project for the day. We're going to get started on it here after a while. This big pile of bricks is fixing to get a heck of a lot bigger. This is about 1/3 of the bricks that were in the old greenhouse. And we're going to pile them up out here, cut up that big piece of plastic, and start laying things down. I don't think it'll be a one-day project, but you never know. Anyway, come along with us as we lay down some bricks and make a new floor for the new greenhouse. Boy, I hate a wet tractor seat in the morning. Well, let's get to work. Now we're going to start the not so fun task of gathering up all of the rest of the paver bricks in the old greenhouse to put in the new greenhouse. Come along with us as we get some work done.
cut, and we've got some pieces of plywood left over from the old greenhouse. Next project is to start laying this out. That's going to be a lot of fun in and of itself. And it's getting hot. That might come tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with us for a bit. Come back and see us. We'll get some work done.